In this mini lecture, we'll look at Chapter 17 on managing information. Here are the learning outcomes for this chapter. You may review them at this time. Your book begins by talking about raw data. And raw data are just basic facts and figures. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to turn that raw data or use that raw data and turn it into good information. So this is an example of some data I collected through a survey. And this is what it looked like when I got it. And what I did then is you put it into a software. You could do this in Excel or you could do this, I used SPSS. And you turn that data into something that's useful. And so this was a statistical test that I did. And this was on hybrid learning. And what these things found is that people prefer hybrid learning based on, or age predicts a preference for hybrid learning. And the benefits that they prefer are that they like about it are flexibility, the interaction, the new skills they're getting, and the fact that they can graduate in a timely manner. And so what I was able to do is take this raw data and put it into SPSS, and it spit this out for me. I didn't even have to calculate anything. I just had to know which tests to do. And it gave me this information. And that's really what we're looking at. Information is useful data that we can use to influence choices or behaviors. Companies or organizations can obtain a first mover advantage or a strategic advantage by being the first to use new information technology. And this can be done to lower costs, to make better products or services, or to provide better service. Amazon.com started as a bookseller, an online bookseller, and they were one of the first companies to really collect information and data and use this data to market to their customers. And so one of the things is they were one of the kind of pioneers in using databases and using that to collect information about their customers and make recommendations. And we all know that today Amazon sells pretty much anything. So obviously they definitely had a first mover advantage from that. So in order for information to be useful or good, it has to be accurate. It has to be complete. You have to make sure you have all the information. It has to be relevant to the problems that you're facing, and it needs to be timely. It needs to be available when we need it to be available, and it needs to be timely in terms of its recency of data collection, which depends on the data you're collecting or using. It's important to note that data and information has costs. So there's costs in acquiring it. For example, when I do surveys, I use a company that helps me to collect responses, and that costs money. There's money in processing it, either paying people to process it or software to process it or both. Storing it, especially if you're storing it in the cloud, retrieving it, and then in communicating that information. There's different ways to capture, process, and protect information. We can manually capture it, although in today's day and age, that's not ideal. It can be slow, costly, labor-intensive, and inaccurate. And that entails recording and entering data by hand. Actually, if you think of like the US Census, a lot of that is captured manually, where they go door to door and actually ask how many people live in your household. That's an example of manual capture. Versus electronic capture, which uses electronic storage devices and software and so forth to capture and record data electronically. All right, so we can use different means for collecting this. So barcodes, which we're all aware of. Every time we go to the grocery store or Target or Walmart, we scan barcodes. Radio frequency identification tags, these have microchips in them, and it transmits information via radio waves. So if you think about your credit card and when you just tap it to pay, that's using RFID technology. We can use sensors. These detect events or changes and transmit that information to other electronic devices. Document scanners, they convert printed text into digital images. Optical character recognition, it's software that converts digitized documents into text for searching, reading, and editing. And then robotic data automation software, where robots are taught to recognize data patterns and then scan, locate, and extract that data. Processing information, again, we're trying to take that raw data and make use of it, make it meaningful. Some of the things you need for processing it are a data warehouse or a database that stores all our data. These can oftentimes be very huge. And then we do data mining, which is kind of what I showed you on that second slide, where you run statistical tests and you're trying to discover unknown patterns and relationships. And there's supervised and unsupervised data mining. Supervised is the user tells the data mining software what to look for, which is what I showed you, and unsupervised is it's actually picking up these patterns and relationships if it can find any. All right, and so some of these patterns that we're looking for are associations, and this is when two or more things tend to occur together. Sequencing patterns, when two or more database elements occur together in a significant pattern, where maybe one precedes the other or when they happen in a certain order. Predictive patterns, patterns that help predict something, to show like this predicts this, this causes this. And then data clusters, and this is when you have three or more database elements that are combined or cluster in a way that means something. Let me give you some examples. Using historical data from the CDC, Google compared search term queries against geographical areas that were known to have had flu outbreaks. Google found spikes in certain search terms where flu outbreaks occurred and identified 45 terms that were strongly correlated with the outbreak of flu. Google then started tracking the use of those terms and now is able to accurately predict when a flu outbreak is occurring in real time. And then using this data, the CDC can act immediately. So that is a really great example of data mining. Pandora or Spotify, they use data like gender, age, zip code that you provide at sign up, as well as the songs that you like or dislike, and where you listen to these and where you like and dislike them and from which devices. And it uses all this data then to provide customers with very curated music. And then Instagram collects, stores, and probably sells to advertisers up to 79% of all forms of user data. This includes information such as data of online purchases, financial transactions, users' location, contacts, information on stored contacts, photos and videos, search and browsing histories, identifiers, such as your contact info, diagnostics, and usage data. And this is why when you're on Instagram, you might see an ad for something that you previously looked at. Like maybe you were shopping for something and you see an ad for that. That's an example of how they're using that data. It's called retargeting, actually. All right, we also have to protect data. I think we're all aware of authentication, authorization, and two-factor authentication. We all use these every day when we log into anything within the University of Minnesota system. There are also other ways to protect information through firewalls. This is hardware or software that sits between the computers in an internal organization and outside network. Malware, this is trying to, it's a program or it's a code that attaches itself to other programs on your computer and can do bad things to your computer or to your network. Same with a virus. We're all aware of these. We all have virus protection, hopefully on our computers. And then data encryption is when we transform data into complex scrambled digital codes that can only be decrypted by authorized users. Your book also talks about internal and external access and sharing, and I like this graphic because I think it helps you to see the differences. So we all know what the internet is, right? We create connections among computers around the world. An extranet, I'm actually going to go to an intranet. An intranet is when our computers or our networks are connected within our organization. I'm sure you see this in your workplaces where your computers can all talk to each other, but it's only within an organization. An extranet is when we connect with people outside our organization, but only people that we choose. So maybe our suppliers or our customers, all right? And then, of course, the internet is everybody. All right. So we can access and share information and knowledge using executive information systems or corporate portals to gain access to our information or company performance. Sometimes we need to share information with external parties, like the extranet that we talked about here. And so we can use electronic data interchange, where we convert purchasing and ordering information to a standard format that allows two companies' computer systems to communicate with each other. Or even more popular these days is we use web services. And this is just software that standardizes protocols to describe data from one company that can be read, transcribed, understood, and processed by other computer systems in a different company. We talked about extranets, and here's just another example of that. Amazon has a dedicated extranet for suppliers and sellers where companies can create accounts, list their products, and make a sale. Authentication features ensure that it has a legal company and it's not a scam. And FedEx has an extranet where customers can log in and check the status of their deliveries. So, great examples. We also can share knowledge using software within the company. So this can be done with decision support systems. This helps managers understand problems and potential solutions. It uses models to do this. An expert system is an information system that has specialized knowledge and decision rules and then is used by experts and decision makers to make decisions. And then artificial intelligence is when the computerized system learns and adapts through experience and then is able to help make decisions as well. And so that's just a really brief chapter 17. I know that it's kind of dry information, but it's also very important in the management function. So if you have any questions, please contact me. Thanks.